It had been almost an hour and a lot had happened. 3 more patrol cars had arrived, an EMT ambulance. The guys inside were wearing that high-visibility jacket like Gloria and David. It was kinda cool to see, but I was getting annoyed. The cops hadn't uncuffed us yet, but they had put all of our weapons to the side, but had left them together. No signs at least I was going to lose my iron. Finally Detective Stintz arrived, conversing with the other officers, and doing general police stuff but ignoring us. Jerk. I mean my wrists couldn't get sore anymore, but this was still not the most comfortable position. Plus I was bored. So bored. Omega bored. June had literally fallen asleep. Hours passed. The sun was rising up before Stintz finally seemed to wrap up the hurried exploration of the farmhouse the NCPD were doing. I was so ready to break out and leave by then. Hours of just sitting there. But finally Detective Stintz walked over to me. I don't suppose you can uncuff me now? It's been an hour, I said before he could say anything, but the man just chuckled. Maybe I shouldn't. Hauling the Oni of Japantown in would be a good deed. Plus, Motoko Kusanagi. Mostly on record for petty theft, a bit of breaking and entering. Grand Theft Auto. Wait, I stole a car? That's pretty Nova. I muttered the last bit to myself. Old Motoko had definitely been a hellion. But I'll give it to you. Everything we've pulled out of here confirms this was the meat man. Even found DNA from some of his confirmed victims. So congratulations, kid. You killed a confirmed bounty target. I've actually killed a couple of those before. This is just the first one I've ever actually called the NCPD with. Well, other than the scavs. I muttered, but while that turned an eyebrow, Stintz didn't say anything more about it, instead moving on. Go ahead and uncuff them. Sir? They may be lowlives, but they took out the real scum today. Stintz offered, and I was frowning a bit. I wasn't a lowlife. Just because I killed and stole for a living. I guess that's fair. Still a jerk thing to say. A few moments later, after June was startled awake, we were uncuffed, although all the officers still looked twitchy as June and I recovered our weapons. Kid. Stintz called out as I finished sliding my boya back into the holster. Yeah? You did okay tonight. Not the best way to go about it, but at least this piece of shit is off the streets. Think about where you want to be in the future. NCPD could use someone with the skill to find the meat man. I opened my mouth, closed it, and then decided to say it anyway. Thanks, but no thanks. I don't think I'll ever be on the side of the law. Figured. But I tried anyway. Go on. You and your brother get lost. Oh, and kid? His eyes turned gold, and to my surprise I got a text from the NCPD confirming a bounty assignment. A couple thousand eddies were available to be claimed. Good work. June slept most of the way home. The sun was fully up when we got there, and June crawled into his bed like a zombie only seconds after entering the apartment. I, on the other hand, had a date. Once June was tucked in, I headed back out, stopping only to fill up the tank of my car, which as always was a monstrously large amount of eddies. I drove over to pick up Hiromi. I was just on time. As I was pulling into Hiromi's garage, I got a text from her. Hiromi, you didn't forget, right? Motoko? Chum? I chuckled as I drove around the garage until I came to where Hiromi parked her bike, finding her already waiting down there, sitting on it and looking nervous. Her face changing to a happy smile was all I needed as I parked in front of her, popping the passenger door. You called for a ride? Yes. Hiromi cheered as she leapt into my passenger seat with a laugh. She settled in, but I was frowning at her after a moment. Seatbelt. I reminded her, earning a roll of her eyes, but she did realize I was being serious and put it on. Okay, seriously, Motoko. That BD was absolutely preem. The first 3 were okay, interesting I guess. I mean, it was weird doing things, but knowing you were the one that did them, you know? But the Maelstrom BD? Yeah, I was so excited. You were so in control. Motoko. You're so cool, she said, winking at me as she said cool. I puffed my cheeks at her because I knew she was only saying that to tease me. I'm glad you liked it. I did some work last night, but hopefully I can get another gig soon and get some more. Oh yeah, definitely pass them my way. Then to my surprise, Hiromi settled back into the quadrus seat and went quiet for a bit. You really are fearless," she offered quietly. I noticed she was also doing everything but looking at me. You don't need to compare yourself to me, Hiromi. I'm scared a lot too. Didn't I tell you? After that first gig with Ichi, after I killed those Tina thugs, I hid in the apartment. June had to force me outside with a ramen bribe. I was scared of going outside again. You got over it. You go out and do amazing gigs and you are super smart. You make friends everywhere you go, and you go to Arasaka Academy, so you'll be some super important corpo executive someday. I'll be doing gigs for you soon, so Hiromi, just be happy, okay? If you aren't, I'll do whatever it takes to make sure you get to be happy. Just. You are such a gonk, she whispered, laughing a bit, and I smiled as her smile was back. Fine. I'll be happy if that is what you want, she said, laughing at me, but I was just glad she was back to normal. Sad Hiromi is a no-no. Or, this sucks, Hiromi said, instantly doing a 360 on her previous mood whiplash. Her name is Hiromi. I was pulling into the front of Arasaka Tower and Hiromi was glaring at the stand of people gathering up and heading inside. What's wrong? Nothing. I just don't want to deal with Tomaru, she sighed as I pulled into a space in front of the building. There were actually a lot of vehicles stopping and going along the bit of circular road. Although rarely did I see parents, usually, it looked like taxi services, or personal drivers, dropping off the kids. My vehicle actually stood out quite a lot from the array of high-end expensive executive cars. Not that I cared. Will you be okay? I asked as Hiromi was pouting, but she looked at me and laughed. Tomaru is a gonk, but I can handle him. No worries. Then as I was parked, she turned in her seat and threw a hug around my shoulders. Thanks for the ride, Motoko. See you later this afternoon? Yep. Gotta pick you up after all, I agreed, and she was smiling as she nodded, stepping out of the car and sending me a wave as she walked backwards. Then as Hiromi started walking amongst the array of students, I saw it. A yellow beat-up Thornton. Galena? I think the name was. The exact kind of car you would never see someone drive to Arasaka Tower. But there it was. And I knew who was in it. I remained parked for a minute as I watched it pull up as David Martinez stepped out. He was about the same as he looked in the anime. Same hair. Same uniform. No jacket, of course. Love you, mijo. Gloria Martinez called out from the driver's seat, waving at her son like it was his first day of school. Which I could see was causing David to start growing red in a blush, and worse, causing the other students to glare at him. But there they were. A part of me. The one that loved anime and wanted to dress up as my favorite characters. Okay, a large part of me. Okay, like 99% of me. Wanted to rush out and introduce myself. To become friends with David, and meet Gloria. But another part of me made me realize that I had my own life to live. My own family, and chums. I might just try to help both of them out, because I did feel for Gloria. Working so hard to make a future for her son. But there was no point in getting involved right now. I already had an idea of when I would be needed. So I pulled out after checking my mirrors and drove out into the city towards home. I had a chunk of time before Hiromi was out of school after all, and I really needed to have a conversation with someone that trust was stretching it. Waikako's pachinko parlor was the same as always. I still had no idea why she chose such a chaotic place for her office. But I walked right in, and as usual Waikako was waiting for me. Girl. Sit, she demanded, which I did, almost rolling my eyes as the older woman took control of the situation instantly. I'm not here for a gig. Well, I mean, I might accept one if you have it, but Waikako. I need some advice, from someone that I can trust. I admitted, which only earned a quirked eyebrow from the dragon lady. I rolled my eyes at her dramatics. I know trust is probably a stupid word. But you have a use for me. So at least I know you won't just burn me without a good reason. Accurate, enough. I do not offer such things for free. Well, maybe you will when you hear what is happening. I'm planning on killing Jotaro Shobo, I said, and that caused a reaction as Waikako's eyes widened just a bit before smoothing out. That is a dangerous statement. Yeah, hence why I'm chatting with you and not just ganking him without anyone knowing. I'm not a tiger claw, But June is, my family was. Killing one of their golden boys won't go over well. What can I do to make sure this doesn't blow up in my face? The woman took a moment to grab a cigarette and light it, taking a long drag before speaking again. You need this man dead. Why? A couple reasons. I admitted. He threatened me. Before I even realized who he was, or what lows he would stoop to. He might have backed up because of my kamikaze connections. Although I am still not a member, people need to stop saying that. Of course. Wakako offered, waving her hand to keep me going, but her voice was full sarcasm. But honestly, I don't like the fact he kidnaps people. Tortures them for BDs and his own sick pleasure. So I'm going to kill him. There are many people doing such dirty jobs. He is not alone, most don't have the connections that Scum has. So why choose him? Because I've had conversations with him in the past, and never even realized what he was. It pisses me off. I admit truthfully, hands clenching. He's a monster, Wakako, and at one point he said he was interested in me, wanted me to work for him. The very idea disgusts me. Troublesome. Certainly troublesome. I would suggest, as someone who has a small desire to keep you alive for my benefit, that you ignore this. Let it go. I knew you would say that. But you will not listen, yes. In that case, I would suggest you never speak of this conversation with me again, forget it ever happened, for I will. And perhaps find another fixer who already has a gig to assassinate a certain Tiger Claw. Wakako tells me, taking a drag and giving me a strong look. Can I even do that? I wouldn't want to offend you, Wakako. You're my fixer. I'm supposed to keep some loyalty to you, right? She looks at me and just scoffs. Says the girl that has joined her brother on gigs left, right and center. June needed me to watch his back. Girl, your brother has quite the rep all on his own. But still. We have no contract saying you only work for me, even if I would prefer to keep it that way. If you must do this, have a fixer ready to protect you from the backlash. Let them take the blame while you disappear like smoke. I nodded slowly. Do you happen to know? Now you ask me to tell you what fixer you should go to while betraying me? Truly, child, you offend me at every turn, she said, but the fact she was actually chuckled meant she was just messing with me. Right? Please be right. There is a fixer in Watson. Jones. Find a way to get in contact with her, and perhaps you can find an ally in this foolishness. We never spoke of this. Thank you, Wakako. I owe you one. Far more than one, she whispered in her grandma catty way. Okay, so all I had to do was somehow get in contact with Regina Jones. Great. Dash. It turns out getting in touch with a fixer wasn't as easy as I expected. I mean, it's not like I knew where Regina's HQ was. Or even if I did, how I would get in touch with her. I couldn't just walk into the afterlife and get in contact either. I wasn't famous enough for that, the bouncer would never let me in. Plus the afterlife was Rogue's HQ. Doubt she would even let Regina in. So for now, for just a bit while I figured this out, the hunt for Jotaro Shobo's life was on the back burner. But his day would come. Instead, what I needed was, well, contacts. People. Friends. And I had just the group that owed me a favor. Hey Scorpion, how's things? You have any issue picking up the vehicles? I sent out a text as I walked back to the car. The sounds of Jig Jig Street all around me. The Joy Toys were working, and the Johns were active around the area, despite it being early afternoon. Night City was certainly special. Suddenly I got a call. Scorpion was reaching out. Hey Scorpion. I chirped into the line, which made the dichotomy even funnier as the guy sounded utterly dead. Hey kid, no issues, we got to the site and clept everything in the middle of the night. Saul thought it might be a trap at first, so it took even longer than it should have, but we got everything moved to the camp. Already have most of the cars repainted. We are. Oh, you. Big time. Nah, you did me a favor. I had no idea what to do with all that crap. I'm at least glad to get it out of the Raffin's hands. I told him as I walked down the street. I thought about going home, but since I was out and about, I stepped across the street and down the steps into Cherry Blossom Market. Ralman sounded good. Yeah, well, that's not how Saul is seeing it. Listen, Motoko. You saved my ass before, and we didn't do what we should have. I mean, I haven't even kept in touch. Why don't you come out to the camp? We are having a barbecue, and Saul wants to meet you. Gotta discuss your pay. Scorpion said, although he ended by breaking out into a jaw-popping yawn. Poor guy. He must be exhausted, what with being woken up in the middle of the night, forced into a long-distance drive to the Rathan camp, looting it up and then driving home. I was just lucky that I didn't really get sleepy like that anymore. Barbecue? I ended up asking, because that sounded fucking amazing. Even if I was settling into the noodle bar and ordering lunch. Well, it's not real meat, but trust me, we know how to make the taste authentic. Kid. Motoko. You should come. We owe you big, let us at least give back a little. You are making Saul freak out about owing so much to some merc he's never met. Come on by, let us throw you a party. Hell, you might get some job offers. We don't usually hire kids for gigs, but you have a bit of a reputation among the Aldercaldos now. Well, I am always looking for more work. I can't make it tonight. I have to help out a chum in a few hours and then I don't think I'll even have time to reach your camp before nightfall. Yeah, we are pretty out here. So let me know another day? You kinda had me at barbecue. I admitted with a smile as I waved down the waiter for a bowl of ramen. Food in Night City was kinda lacking. Tomorrow then. I'll let Saul know. Motoko. For last night. Thanks, I'll make sure we pay you back for all of it. You've made a lot of friends with the Aldercaldos over this. It was nothing. Really. But I guess I'll see you tomorrow. I'll send the camp's coordinates. See ya then, kid. I'm not a. He hung up. I grumbled, but I was smiling a bit too. I guess I'll have to tell June not to wait up for me tomorrow. I wasted some time at the ramen bar eating and watching the news on the TV there, but eventually I paid and slipped out, heading home, actually walking back to the apartment just to enjoy being able to go outside again. Geez, it made me remember just how long it had been since I was able to just go on the street for a walk. Since the kidnapping. As I walked through the horde of people walking through the market, I felt paranoia slowly amping up. It wasn't like I was far from where it had happened. The crowd was thick. I would have trouble escaping if someone attacked me. I had my boya, but what if I didn't bring enough ammo? What if I didn't have enough max stocks? What if? But no. I wasn't going to live like that. Morgan Blackhand had mentioned paranoia was a good thing for a solo. There was literally a segment in his guide about constantly moving, sleeping in different locations, and never falling into habits that someone could use against you. Good advice, but also a good way to spend your entire life living in utter fear. Or sleeping in cardboard boxes in alleys just to throw people off your trail. No thanks. I let a drop of cold blood wash away the paranoia. I was in control of myself, and I wasn't about to let my fear control my life like that. I would just have to get so amazing in everything that I could build a Doom fortress or something. Seriously, Morgan, your advice is good, but also kind spastic. So instead I pushed my shoulders back, my head up and started stalking. I wasn't tall enough to cause the crowd to break around me, and while I was armed, so was everyone else, but it made me feel better. Made me confident as I walked home. No maelstrom jumped out of the shadows to attack me, no one even noticed me. It made me scoff at my own paranoia. I made it home without anything happening. A reminder that in the grand scheme of things I wasn't some super important character. I was just Motoko, and I wasn't that important. Yet. I raced up the stairs of the apartment, enjoying how easy it was to run up the 4 flights of stairs. As I slipped into the apartment, I could hear the quiet snoring of June still coming from his room. Silly June, but I guess I had literally kept him up all night on my hunt for that killer. I made sure to keep quiet as I settled in. I had a few hours until Hiromi was free from school, so I set an alarm in my HUD and grabbed my ice laptop. Let's do some casual grinding while I wait. I was waiting in front of the Arasaka building when Hiromi came out. Sure, I had gotten some weird looks, and Arasaka security looked like they were keeping a close eye on my all-black ride, but I didn't care. I wasn't doing anything nefarious. Finally, the crowd of teenagers headed out, almost all of them heading to private vehicles. A few of the truly rich didn't even leave the front of the building, instead getting into AVs and disappearing into the sky of Night City. A place only the ultra-rich and powerful were welcome to. Hiromi though stalked out of the building, practically stomping on her way out. Her direct path towards my car was interesting, as some people had to literally get out of the way as she stomped up to the car and flopped in. "I hate morons," she said, practically growling as I nodded along with her. Hiromi was super mad. I wasn't about to start poking her until she was ready. I pulled out into traffic and started heading for her home. A minute later she finally spoke. "That fucking Gong Tamaru. He pulled some shit, tried his stupid power play shit again. Fucker." Hiromi ranted, glaring out the window as I just nodded along. "Want me to kill him?" The silence in the car stretched on for a moment before Hiromi chuckled. "No. It would certainly make my life easier," she admitted, actually breaking through her anger and chuckling a bit. "Sorry, I should have said thanks for picking me up, Chum." "It's fine. School is the worst," I offered, earning a snort from Hiromi. "Motoko, you literally never went to school. I bet everything you know about school comes from some cartoon or something," Hiromi teased, and the fact I couldn't just argue against that, my amnesia and past life made anything I could say come out wrong. So I just flushed and tried to ignore the way Hiromi's smile was turning shark-like. "When we stop at your place, how about I work on your bike? I can probably fix it up tonight." I interrupted whatever teasing Hiromi was about to do, trying to avoid my chum's assault. "Fine. I'll let you change the subject." "That would be great. Do you need anything?" "Nah. I have my toolbox in the trunk, should be everything I need. Hang out with me while I do it?" "Definitely." Hiromi's Kusanagi was in rough shape. She hadn't damaged the frame or anything. Kusanagi, even the stupid Mizuchi with all the modifications going into it, that she owned. Most of it was just panel damage, although one of the magnetic brake calipers on the front wheel was bent a bit. I ended up needing to disassemble the front brake array, and with a bit of work with my autofab and a bit of time I had a new brake caliper reattached and the front wheel spinning as it should instead of grinding and stuck. "You're way better at this than I thought," Hiromi muttered beside me. We had been out here for a few hours and Hiromi had gone from standing around, to sitting to lazily laying against her bike after I had put it on its side to fix the brakes. "I've been practicing with tinkering and stuff. Did I show you my gadget?" I asked, perking up a bit when Hiromi shook her head. Despite my hands full with one of her side panels actively undenting the piece of metal, I reached into my hip pouch and pulled out my distance mic. "What is it?" Hiromi asked curiously as I passed it over. She figured out the earpiece quickly enough, but I had to reach over and tug on the actual microphone before she realized the wires were set into a little assembly. I tugged it out and let it go, watching as it was pulled back inside. A moment of fiddling and she had it extended out. The microphone I had to instruct her to tie around her finger with the little strap on the end. "Point it at me," I said as my hands continued on their task of fixing the dented plate. Only once she did so did I start humming quietly, purposefully keeping the tone low. "Oh. It's a directional mic," Hiromi chirped, figuring it out. After all, for her this wasn't some weird tech that is rarely used. It's Tuesday, it's normal. I've seen plenty of TV shows, and even cartoons mention gadgets like this all the time. Hiromi had grown up in a world where technology was easily accessible, and practically skewed towards corporate espionage. "Yeah. I ran into a problem at one of my gigs. The maelstrom were having a conversation and I couldn't hear what they were saying. That right there is step 1 on fixing the problem. I still need to go into some programming for it. I want it to be able to focus on a conversation and ignore music or something." "Arasaka has a cyberware that does that," Hiromi said, tapping at her lips. "I suppose I could find a piece and see what the programming is like, but I kinda want to do this all on my own. To see just what I can do. You know?" Hiromi just gave me a smile as I admitted this was more of a challenge to myself than something I needed right then. "I'm sure it'll be great, Motoko. It's way more than I could make already. You're making me look bad over here," she told me, poking me with her shoe as she teased me. "Hey. It's just time and work. You have school, and rents, and stuff to deal with." "Yeah, 'cause you don't have gigs, June, and all sorts of crazy stuff you are doing. I'm way lazy compared to you." "I just huffed. Maybe, but you're still my best chum. I wouldn't want anyone else at my side," I told her, flashing a smile before going back to my work. I never noticed her flush at my compliment. Done. I called out suddenly as I pulled the newly repaired side panel off the floor, looking it over. The paint was still ruined, but that was a much easier fix than the massive dents in the thing. Really? Already? Sure. Easy peasy. Help me reinstall it? I prompted Hiromi, who jumped to help, and with her helping to hold it in place, I was able to use a small power tool to put it back together and pull her bike back onto its wheels. Done. I grunted as the bike was righted. Want to give it a drive around the block? Yes. Come on, Motoko, Hiromi said, jumping onto the bike and patting behind her. No way, Chum. I denied, holding my arms up in an X. I have to clean up my tools, and I don't want to be anywhere near you driving if I can help it. Muotuoko. Hiromi whined at me, eyes wet and lip puffy. Hiromi used puppy dog face. It's super effective. Fine. I grumbled, taking a minute to grab my toolbox and load it into the quadra to make sure it was secure, before climbing in behind Hiromi. The screech of wheels going way too fast had me gripping my chum a bit tight, but thankfully Hiromi didn't complain. Despite just needing a ride around the block to make sure everything was working, Hiromi headed out into the city, seemingly just happy to have her freedom again. While stopped at a red light, which I will admit I'm shocked Hiromi actually stopped at. The first 2 times Hiromi had just blown through them without a care. Maybe it was my screaming in her ear the entire time? If someone had been standing at the crosswalk as we passed by, they would have been treated to my Doppler effect scream as she raced through. Seriously, my heart was pounding more right now than it did when I was in a fight for my life. Hiromi, more dangerous than a gunfight. While paused at the light, I finally pulled away from the death grip I had on my chum. Where are we going? I finally asked. For the first time since we started racing through the streets, I could actually hear a response. Nowhere. I just wanted to get out. You know? Stuck at home for so long, I just needed to go. She called back and I nodded. Before stilling. Hey Hiromi? What are you doing tomorrow night? I know you have school and stuff, but I had an offer from some nomads I'm friends with to go to a barbecue. Want to come? I offered. If Hiromi needed to get out, away from her apartment that she had been trapped in for weeks. Then the Badlands were super far away. What? Nomads? Motoko? What are you talking about? Oh, last night I was hunting down green light. I called out, startling Hiromi, when I realized we had both been distracted and hadn't noticed the light change. Grumbling, she started off, but instead of rushing down the street, she found a parking spot and settled in, even hitting the kickstand so we were properly parked. Now say that again? She demanded, and I nodded. Last night I was hunting down this serial killer guy. Total creep factor. Anyway, one of the farms June and I had a bunch of raffen. I mean, they were right there. So I took them out. I shrugged, miming a stabbing motion to get my point across. It really had been an easy spot of murder. The raffen had literally been asleep on the job. Shit. You went out on a gig last night? Why didn't you tell me? I told you just now. I offered, rolling my eyes. You're still a gonk. But come on, deets. Nuh-uh. I recorded it, you can see it for yourself. Eventually. I'll need to see Judy and drop them off. Anyway, all the raffen had a bunch of wheels. So I called up some Aldecoldo's buddies. Remember Scorpion? I told you about him when I went and did that gig? I called him and they picked them up, but the Aldecoldo's boss feels he owes me one, and I got an invite to a barbecue and a meeting. So want to come? Shit, Motoko, your life is so crazy. You bet I'm in. 100%. Cool. Will your rents be okay with that? We'll likely be gone all night. Maybe all day even? I'll convince them. I can just tell them it's an infamy with the nomads as a work connection or something. She mumbled the last bit, starting to nibble on her bottom lip as she thought about it. Cool, I said, smiling. Honestly, it was a long drive out to the Aldecoldo's camp. It would be nice to have a travel buddy. Hiromi was practically buzzing after, swiftly shaking off her thoughts of convincing her parents, and instead taking us back into the streets. Hiromi. Red means stop. Dash. After Hiromi finally got the need to drive around out of her system, we headed home. She needed to try and convince her parents to let her leave the city, and I wanted to go see Judy and Knox. I did have the raffen assault to offer up now, although I wasn't going to share the one where I killed the meat man. I wasn't sure how many people would end up knowing about his death, and while I wasn't exactly worried about people knowing it was me that did it, there really wasn't much on that gig worth keeping, especially since I had failed to hack the mines. It wasn't like I was going to destroy that recording just because it showed me try and fail to hack the mines over and over. It was because it was boring. Definitely. Sliding into a parking spot at Lizzie's, I was really surprised when as I walked up to the door Rita actually walked out and matched my pace. To my surprise she threw an arm over my shoulder and was giving me a smile. "Hey kid." "Oh, hey Rita. Wanna talk with you? Come with?" she asked, and it was definitely a question. She wasn't pushing me along, or anything, just giving me a minute to decide. "Sure. I just needed to drop off something with Judy, but I'm not in a rush." "Preem. Come on kid," she said, smiling as she guided me inside. Nobody really paid us any attention other than the door bouncer that was replacing Rita, who just gave Rita a quirked eyebrow before sliding into her position. Then Rita walked me into Lizzie's, towards the back, and into one of the private booths. I might have been a bit uncomfortable about the whole thing if Rita was chattering away about something Judy had done a month or so ago when she had tried to spend 3 days working while staying awake drinking her crazy caffeine soda. Apparently Judy had a bit of a wild side after 3 days without sleep. So that's why we don't let her have those things anymore. Replacing the tables cost a pretty penny. Susie wasn't happy about it, but Judy is too good at what she does to really punish. Rita ended the story, causing both of us to laugh at Judy's antics. "So what's going on, Rita?" I asked, breaking up the funny stories. "Well kid. No, I should do this right. Martico, I wanted to make sure. Listen. I'm not great at this sort of thing. There's a reason I'm the bouncer and not one of the touchy-feely types. I watched that BD you had Judy do, she showed it to me that night, and I just wanted to say." Rita, to my surprise, looked uncomfortable as she sort of toyed with her bangs. "Rita? If you ever need to talk to someone? If you just want to hang out with someone that gets it, that understands, I'm here. The mocks are here. We aren't. Well, Judy and some of the older girls try to keep the spirit alive, but we don't go out and try to help people as much as we used to, but I still. Fuck, I'm rambling," the older woman said, sighing as she looked around and found a bottle of something alcoholic laying around the booth. She took a second to check it and then popped the glass stopper and took a swish of it down. I just kept staring because I had no idea what was going on. "Okay, I can do this. Come on Rita," she said, pepping herself up before she focused on me again. "Listen, Martico. This stuff. Killing, Chrome, Night City, it's not easy, but if you need something, I get it. I went through similar shit when I was a kid too. Forced Chrome, fighting, killing, because if I didn't I would be the one dead. The whole reason we all came together as the mocks was to help people like us. If you need help getting away from the TC, if you just want to stop killing or being chipped, I'll be here, someone to talk to, or back you up if you need it. Fuck, I'm not good at being the sponsor," she muttered, turning away from me, and it was only because of how she had shifted that I saw the bits of her face that wasn't chrome was actually blushing. "How cute." "Thanks Rita," I said. I couldn't help it. I was smiling at her obvious distress because it really showed how much this meant to her. I mean, I don't really think I'm in any trouble. I mostly just work with the TC to watch my brother, and other than these arms, which was Maelstrom, I barely have any other chrome. But I get it. Thank you for reaching out. It's really sweet." "Don't call me sweet," Rita groaned, the top of her face flushed as she did her best to look away from me, the bottle of alcohol clutched in her hands as if it was a lifeline. "But you are. I'm not in any trouble, honest. The gigs I take, the people I kill, it's my choice, and I kinda like it," I admitted as I settled onto the couch beside her so we could chat easier. "I found I have a talent for it, and it's exciting. Thrilling even." "Oh. Fuck. Uck. I'm such a gonk. Stupid Rita, real stupid," she muttered to herself, but I wasn't about to let Rita, who was being an absolute sweetheart trying to help me escape what she must have thought was some Tiger Claw workforce. I guess if you saw me killing Maelstrom at the side of TC when I kept saying I wasn't with them, it could be interpreted that way. I reached out before she could berate herself anymore and pulled her into a hug. my arms wrapping around her own as I practically pinned her arms to her sides to give her the strongest hug I could. I nearly giggled as she went still for a moment. Thanks, Rita. Really. It's nice to know that one more person in this city is looking out for me. Honestly, not enough people do that. It's what the mocks are supposed to do, she said quietly, sounding a little uncomfortable at the contact. So I pulled away. I mean, there is a reason I think the mocks are the best gang in the city. We used to be even better. She muttered but shook it away as she finally seemed to focus on me. You're a real monster, kid. That BD, some of the stuff I saw, that wasn't normal. Wasn't something you see on a teenager, even the ones with a history like me. You sure you're okay? Someone isn't forcing you? Yeah. I'm okay. I promise. Well, I mean, I'm still recovering from the whole Maelstrom kidnapping, but I'm feeling a lot better. She frowned, nodding a bit at my response before seeming to come to a decision. I know what it's like to be forcefully chipped. I lost my arms the same way. Motoko, do you? Do you do anything creative with your hands? She asked suddenly, and I stilled before nodding. Yeah? I started tinkering. I even made a distance microphone the other day. From scratch, I said, pulling it out and showing Rita. Once more showing off my baby. She smiled, but shook her head a bit. Not what I meant exactly. Sorry, I'm not great at this. I mean, like, spiritually creative? Art? Or something? After I got out, after I realized I was stuck with these arms, I didn't handle it well. Took me a long time to get over that they were a piece of me and not just some monster attached to my meat. I started. Just don't tell anyone, okay? I started sculpting. It's something I did as a kid, and I came back to it. I make little figurines. Animals, just things that can't talk back, or push boundaries. Every time I see them now, I'm reminded that they were created with these hands of mine. That my arms aren't just weapons. That they can do good things too. So it helps me. Try finding something, anything. Whatever suits you, and maybe it will help. She went quiet after that, looking extremely uncomfortable, which is saying something when most of her face was chrome. Wow. Rita was really trying hard to help. I didn't know what to say, what to do, so I just did what felt natural. I reached out and grabbed her hand. And gave her a squeeze. It was a quiet minute between us. Two women that had been assaulted and ripped apart. I felt myself eventually falling into a goofy smile as I took in Rita and what she had tried to do. Eventually, with no more words said, we split apart, Rita obviously having hit her maximum amount of emotional baggage for the day. I went to drop off the RAF and BD with Judy, who took it with some interest. But I didn't stick around. I'll admit I hadn't thought about it. Rita was right though. Everything I did since I got the system revolved around getting stronger for combat, for murder. Even my tech interests. It was like I was reacting to the fear of living in Night City. Trying to get strong enough to protect myself. But did I actually have any hobbies that didn't involve grinding? Did I do anything for fun that wasn't just the feedback loop towards combat? I ended up sitting in the quadra for a while, just staring out at the people walking by, as I was forced to consider the fact that I might have just been a little teensy tiny bit too obsessed with this whole merc thing. What exactly did Motoko Kusanagi do for her mental well-being, other than rely on cold blood? What hobbies did she have that didn't involve fighting? This would need further thought.